Hello and welcome to another episode of The Sovereign Room. I'm your host, Sarah Elsherbeni, Naturopathic Doctor, Feminine Embodiment Guide, and Somatic Facilitator. This is your space to come home to your body, reclaim your voice, and heal the nervous system patterns keeping you in survival mode so you can trust yourself again, feel safe in your own skin, and lead your life, relationships, and business from sovereignty instead of self-abandonment. I am so excited you're here. Come sit with me inside the Sovereign Room.
Hello and welcome back, you guys, to another episode. And I'm super excited because today's episode is something that I think many women experience but don't always have the words for. And we're talking about speaking up in relationships. And when I say relationships, I don't necessarily mean just romantic relationships. I mean friendships, your family, dating, work, community. It's those little moments where someone says something, they do something, maybe they cross a line, they make a comment, they kind of tickle or touch a wound that kind of puts you in a position that does not feel good in your body. And instead of saying something, you laugh it off, right? And you say, it's okay, no worries, it's fine, right? And we just move on because we're great at that. We're great at just sweeping it under the rug and moving on. But then later, when you're alone at home in a safe space, you start reflecting and your body's kind of still holding on to this moment, right? Your chest feels a little tight, your jaw is probably clenched, and your stomach kind of feels off. And you probably keep replaying that specific conversation over and over and over in your head. And then the rationalization starts, right? You start rationalizing what they said or what they did. And maybe you're like, maybe I am too much. Maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe they did not mean it like that, right? Maybe I understood it incorrectly. I should probably just let it go. Because maybe if I do say something, they're going to think I'm dramatic. Maybe I'm going to make it weird. They're going to get upset. I should probably just move on. And I think this is where many of us really start losing our voice over time, right? And it's not always going to be in like big, obvious moments. Sometimes it really just happens in those small moments where your body says that did not feel good and your mouth says it's okay, it's fine. Because here, your voice is not the problem. The pattern of abandoning your voice is the problem. So if this is your pattern, you may not even think of yourself as somebody who does struggle with boundaries. You might think that you're just like an easygoing, understanding person. You think that you are the person who does not really want to make a big deal of things. You probably really don't like confrontation at all. Hi, it's me, I'm the problem. But then you start to notice the resentment come up, the heaviness. You start to notice that you say okay when you actually mean, that kind of hurt me. You notice that you say I'm fine when your body's still processing what happened. You notice that you keep these particular conversations looping in your head instead of actually having them. And the wild part is that sometimes you have the whole conversation with them in your mind and you imagine what they say, how they're going to respond. You imagining them get defensive and misunderstanding you, and then you imagine them leaving. That hits the heart chords, right? They're going to leave me. They're going to abandon me. They're not going to want to be my friend anymore, right? And you imagine that and play it step by step, scene by scene. And before you have even said literally one word out loud, you have already made yourself responsible for their emotions and how they're going to react to that. And that's so fucking exhausting. And I know that place so freaking well, because you are used to managing other people's comfort, emotion. Telling the truth can feel like you are doing something wrong, even when all you're saying is, actually, that didn't really feel good to me. And I think one of the reasons this is so hard for us is because so many things have been normalized that do not actually feel good in our body. We have normalized women laughing off the discomfort, being called dramatic when they speak a certain need that they have. You know, we've normalized women being called complicated when we actually have standards. We've normalized men pushing boundaries and women trying not to make it awkward. We've normalized daughters swallowing their truth because family does not know what to do with their honesty. We have normalized women becoming submissive. in a way that often means silent, agreeable, and disconnected from their own desire. Because how dare you desire more? You should be grateful for what you have already. Because when a pattern is normal in a particular culture, family dynamics, religion, relationship, or the friend group, it can take years to realize that your body was still telling the truth. And we've normalized that idea that if you need more, ask for more, or say no, you're being too much. Something can be normal and still not nourishing. Something can also be common and still not aligned with your values. Something can be accepted by everyone else in the world and still be a no to your body. And I think that's such an important part of us coming back home to our bodies, to ourselves. This is the important part of self-return. And so learning to listen to your body, even when the outside world has taught you to override it, is a little be challenging. So when I think about my own voice, right, I can trace a lot of this back to the moment where I actually did speak up, where I did speak up or reacted in a way of how I felt, reacted to something that hurt me, spoke up about something that did not feel good. And it blew up in my face. The friend who told you, fuck you, the person who told you you're overreacting, right? And I think at that point, my nervous system started to rewire and code and learned something from that. And so it started to learn that, oh, speaking up cost me this connection. When I speak up, people leave me. If I say how I feel, things will probably get worse. It might be safer for me to just swallow it. And over time, I stopped saying the things like that rubbed me the wrong way, or that didn't feel good to me, or you crossed a boundary. I need something different here. I'm not okay with that. I actually don't want that. And this obviously did not stay in one relationship, right? It bled into many areas of my life, into friendships, family relationships, dating, the way I let people treat me, the way I loved, the way I let people make decisions around me without checking in with myself, right? I became really good at keeping the peace. Might as well just recruit me and, create peace treaties at this point. I became really good at reading the room, becoming a chameleon and, code switching and just learning to blend in, fit in, not disrupt the peace. Became really good at adjusting myself so other people did not feel comfortable. Right? I became comfortable with setting myself on fire to keep others warm. And when you do that long enough, you start losing access to your own body because your body's always communicating to you, through tightness, contraction, irritation, the grief, the anger, the numbness, the ache, that residual ache that's there that you can't point to, but it's there. But when you override those cues over and over and over again, you slowly teach yourself that your body is not the authority, that someone else's comfort becomes the authority, someone else's response becomes the authority. And then one day you start asking yourself, what actually feels good to me? And you don't even know the answer because you've spent so much of your life doing what made everyone else comfortable. I think one of the biggest shifts has been realizing that I'm allowed to have values. I'm allowed to have beliefs and standards. I'm allowed to have boundaries around what feels good, safe, aligned, and respectful to me. And that does not make me rude. It does not make me high maintenance. It does not make me wanting too much. It doesn't make me dramatic, unloving, or complicated. It makes me an honest human being. And I think as women, we really need to hear that because we have been taught that wanting more makes us difficult. Wanting clarity makes us needing. Wanting respect apparently makes us demanding. Wanting our bodies to be honored makes us too much. Wanting a conversation makes us dramatic. But you're allowed to ask for what you need. You are allowed to ask for what you want. And then the other person gets to respond. If it's a yes, it's a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. But at least now you have your truth. And at least now you're not sitting there trying to build a relationship on all the things that you are afraid to say. And that is such a big part of this because speaking up is not about forcing someone to meet you. It's about giving yourself, your body, enough respect to stop pretending that you don't have needs as well. So I want to share 5 ways to help build confidence in speaking up in relationships. And number 1 is start with the relationships that feel safer to you. Okay. There's no way that, for example, if there's a conversation that's been lingering that you want to have with your parents or a significant other, someone that might be a little bit higher scale up on that little totem pole, and you're not going to go from 1 to 100 overnight. And so how can we build those steps to get you there? Because if you have never communicated boundaries with your parents, it might be too much for your nervous system to start there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're weak. It just means that your body may not have enough evidence yet that speaking up can be safe. So we start smaller. We start with a friend who can hear you, someone who respects your honesty. Start with a situation that's not as charged. Start with a situation that feels like a level 1 or 2 instead of jumping straight into a level 5. And you can practice saying things like, I actually do not have capacity for that this week. That does not work for me. I need to think about it before I say yes. I think that's a big one, especially knowing a little bit more about who you are as a person and a little bit of human design, because I love that. I am an emotional generator. And for me, I cannot respond immediately. I have to ride my emotional waves. So I need to think before saying yes, before committing. And sometimes that means the day of. And people have to be okay with that, right? Like I can say I love you and I also need to be honest with you. Or, that comment didn't feel good to me. You're basically building that muscle within your body and building those neural connections again. You are teaching your body that your voice can come out and you can survive the moment. You're not going to die because sometimes confidence doesn't come before the conversation, right? A lot of us, myself included, have waited. I will wait until I have enough confidence to be able to speak up to people or speak up in front of a group of people. But sometimes that confidence does not come before the conversation. Sometimes confidence comes because you have practiced the conversation enough times that your body starts believing you that you are safe to tell the truth. Number 2 is stop needing a perfect explanation before you speak, okay? Speaking from experience, we love to play the conversation into our heads. We like to prep ahead of time. We like to have all the things planned out before we speak so we don't fuck up or that it sounds eloquent enough, right? It's a big one because a lot of women, like I said, they wait until they have the perfect explanation before they say anything. We want to have the perfect words, the perfect tone, the perfect timing, the perfect argument, because apparently we're lawyers now, right? We need to have the correct argument, the perfect proof that we are allowed to feel how we feel. Audacious, if you tell me. Audacious. But sometimes the truth is simple, okay? Because your body does not need a 5-paragraph essay for something to matter. All it needs is truth. That's it. That didn't feel good to me. I felt dismissed when that happened. I felt pressure in the moment. I need more communication. I need more time. I'm actually not ready for that. We're moving a little too fast. I don't want to move this fast. I want to be spoken to with more care, with more acknowledgement, with more respect. And yes, there may be a deeper conversation after that, obviously, but you do not need to defend your boundary before you even named it. You're allowed to start with the truth that you have access with and then allow yourself to grow and expand after that. Number 3 is write a letter that you never have to send. Do you feel the relaxation in your nervous system? Sometimes your body needs to hear your voice before the other person does. So write the letter, whether that's to your parents, your friend, your ex. Maybe you need to write it to a version of you that stayed silent. Write everything that you wish you would have said with the anger, the grief, the disappointment, the boundary, the truth, the I wish you knew how much that hurt me. I actually needed you to protect me and you didn't. I did not feel chosen. I was not okay. I deserved more. And you don't have to send it. You burn it, you tear it, pray over it, keep it somewhere private if you need to. The point is not always to confront the other person. Sometimes the point is just to let the truth move through your body instead of staying trapped in your throat. Because a lot of times, let this be a permission slip, but a lot of times there's no need for a conversation with people sometimes, and that's okay. Some people would just bless and release out of our life, and the only thing that we get to do is have that conversation with ourselves and allow it to move through our body instead of having it trapped in our throat, because so many of us are actually carrying conversations we never got to have, and the body will continually remember that. Number 4 is another favorite one of mine is practice the conversation in the mirror. That feels a little cringy, huh? Mirror work can feel awkward at first, but it is one of the most powerful practices in a lot of various ways, but it's a most powerful practice because it actually lets you practice telling the truth while staying with your own body. And so I recommend before doing this is grounding yourself, feel your feet, put one hand on your heart or your belly or wherever your body is guiding you. that it needs more touch and love and pressure, take a few deep breaths and then imagine this person in front of you, right? Going into this practice, what conversation is it that you really wanted to have with what person? And imagine this person in front of you and say exactly what you need to say. It can be messy, imperfect, emotional, angry, soft, clear, whatever is real, that is what needs to come through. And you can say, I needed you to hear me without interrupting me. I need to tell you how this impacted me. I know you may not agree, but this is how it felt in my body. I'm not available for that anymore. I love you and I'm not abandoning myself to keep this peaceful. And even if you never ever have this conversation in real life, there is still so much power in letting your body experience it and experience you standing with yourself. Because sometimes the peace starts with knowing you finally told your truth. And then number 5 is let their response give you information. Okay, this is one of the biggest pieces. As a woman and as women who have learned to kind of avoid the responses and tend to their response, we try to control their response. This is one of the biggest pieces. So when you ask for what you need, the goal is not always to get the answer that you want. As much as we'd love that, sometimes the answer gives you the exact information that you needed. If someone can hear you, repair with you, respect your boundary, and care about your experience, that gives you enough information. If someone mocks you, punishes you, dismisses you, guilt trips you, makes you feel crazy, or turns your honesty into some sort of attack, that gives you information too. And a no is not always rejection. Sometimes no is the clarity that you needed. Sometimes that no actually saves you from continuing to negotiate your worth with someone who was never willing to meet you or value you for that matter. And a yes is beautiful when it is honest as well, because then you know the relationship has space for your truth. That is what we are looking for, not perfection, not someone who never gets it wrong, but someone who can meet your voice with enough care that your body does not have to keep bracing for impact. Relax that pelvic floor. And I want to be really honest here, right? Because as most of us, we're like, okay, well, I'm going to begin practicing this and start doing this because I want to strengthen my voice. And with a lot of us and the society we live in where we are instant gratification, like if I do this, when am I going to see results? Please. And I want to be really honest here because you're not going to speak up one time and suddenly become this wildly confident woman who never questions herself again. Not to say that that could happen, right? And also, if we're being real, that is usually not how this work happens. The work is compounding and built through repetition, through small moments where you start to pause before you say yes, through moments where you notice the laugh in your throat and choose to tell the truth instead. Through moments where you feel your body contracting and you actually listen, where you ask for what you need, even if your voice shakes. And over time, your body starts collecting this new evidence. You start building those new neural pathways. You start rewiring your nervous system. And this evidence that you can speak up and survive the moment and not die. Evidence that someone else's disappointment does not mean that you did something wrong. Evidence that a relationship can have tension and it can still be safe. Evidence that your needs can exist without you having to apologize for them. Evidence that your no can be honored and that your yes can also be trusted. And that is where things start to shift and change for us. You start noticing that you do not rehearse every conversation for 3 days before having it. You start catching yourself before the automatic, like, it's okay, comes out of your mouth. You start feeling the difference between what's a true yes, right? And a yes that is trying to keep the peace. Because now you're building this connection with your body. You know what a true yes is and what a yes is that feels like keeping the peace. So you start asking yourself, do I actually want this or am I just afraid of what will happen if I say no? You start becoming more honest in your friendships, more honest in dating, more honest with your family and with yourself, the most important person of all. And that honesty starts to create a different kind of life, a life where you're no longer constantly managing everyone else's emotions and reactions before you even check in with your own, a life where your body no longer has to hold every unsaid thing. A life where you can ask what you want and let the answer give you information. A life where your relationships are not built on how much of yourself you can suppress and give. a life where you can be loving without being silent, where you can be kind without being available for every single thing, where you can be devoted without betraying yourself, where you can be close with someone without disappearing inside their needs. And that does not mean that every conversation will go well. We're going to have the conversations that don't go well, that blow up, that spiral. Not everything's going to be perfect. Some people may not like the version of you who speaks. Isn't that the whole point of healing? And people who don't like that version of you, now we know that they liked the easygoing version of us that was easy to be manipulated, the naive version of ourselves. Some people benefited from the version of you that stayed quiet. Some relationships may need to adjust, and some may not have the capacity to come with you where you're going. People are in our life for a season, and that's okay. Some of those relationships are with us for lifetimes, and that's okay too. But then there's some that are just there for seasons, and that can be painful. But what begins to happen is that your life becomes more honest, and your body starts to become less heavy, and your voice becomes more connected to your center. And little by little, you start becoming the woman who does not have to abandon herself in order to be loved. And that is the shift, not the perfection, not the feeling scared, not always saying it beautifully or eloquently, but building enough safety inside yourself to stop laughing off the things your body has been asking you to name. So as a reminder, your needs are not an inconvenience. Your boundaries are not an attack. Your voice is not what ruins safe relationships. Your voice reveals whether this relationship has room for the real you. And if something does not feel good in your body, you're allowed to listen to that. You're allowed to ask, you're allowed to say no, you're allowed to hear no, and you're allowed to stop laughing off the moments that are asking you to come home to yourself. Because being easy to love should never require you to abandon the truth of who you are. So thank you for being a part of this conversation. If this episode gave you any sort of words for something that maybe you have been carrying it, please share it with a woman who's learning how to use her voice as well. And until next time, I'll see you guys next week for a new episode. Much love.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of The Sovereign Room. If this conversation gave you language, permission, or even one big deep exhale, share it with a woman in your life who is also learning how to come home to herself. And if you haven't already, follow the podcast, leave a rating, and subscribe so more women can find their way into this room. New episodes drop every Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep coming home to your body, your voice, and yourself.